When your company is collapsing around you, you've got creditors banging on the door looking for answers, and you don't know whether to stay and fight for what you've worked so hard for or to walk away. Now, add to the mix, you've signed personal guarantees. It's all on you. The fear is getting very, very real, and you've got to act very fast. Today I'm going to share a story about a director who found himself in exactly that position. His business was on the rocks. He was thinking about shutting the doors, walking away and going to get a job, but he had personal guarantees hanging over his head, and he thought that his family home was on the line. We sat down. We looked at the facts, not in a panic mode. We had a look at things how they were, and we helped him figure it out. And in the end, we structured a deal that allowed him to start again and renegotiate his personal guarantees. So if you're stuck, if you're under pressure and you're staring at PGs and insolvency, I want you to watch this video, because making the right decision early can be the difference between starting again, or in this case, the guy could have lost everything. Chris Worden, director first. So listen, let's get straight into it. This was a business that worked in the sort of sports arena, so to speak. He sold sports equipment, and his business boom time was actually in the summer. So it was from a few months ago. Now we got the call. He owed HMRC, and he owed a supplier £410,000, and he'd taken on 30 grand with iWalker, 38 grand with Capital on Tap, and a large debt with Funding Circle of £190,000. All of these loans were personally guaranteed. Now, at the time, he had stock that he believed was probably worth, I'll add that on here, stock, around 300k. And this was various equipment that he sold online. Now, the issue started because his online sales year on year had dropped. And actually, when he started to, he was hoping things would pick up in May. They didn't do. Now, where the real pressure was coming from, he was managing to sort of just about scrape through. But it's actually this supplier here. And this was a US-based supplier. And what they were trying to do was to take away his, basically his jurisdiction. Like they've never really sold direct in the UK before. And what he felt is they were trying to edge him out, and they started to sell in the UK in direct competition to him. He'd had this relationship with the supplier for many, many years, and he started to see the writing on the wall. He'd also built up some VAT and PAYE, and rightly or wrongly, what this guy's normal plan was, quarter one and quarter two were generally a little bit ropey for him from a cash flow point of view. So it was quite normal for him to have HMRC arrears. And when he started to generate revenue in quarter three, what he would do, he'd generate that much revenue in quarter three, he would be able to clear the arrears from quarter one and quarter two. And he tended to do that every year. But this year, something changed. The revenue slowed down. And it took him by surprise, because we've had a really nice year. And actually, this business thrived on sunny weather. So he's called me, money's diminishing in the bank, and he's going, right, Chris, what do I do here? So we had a look at the options. And obviously option one is, can you put some money in personally to plug this gap, certainly with HMRC? But then when we looked at his personal guarantee situation, like this guy has put a lot on the line so far. And because he wasn't confident, not that he couldn't pay HMRC, but he believed this company was going to wind him up. They threatened a winding up petition. Now the problem is, if the company threatened a winding up petition and they went through on the winding up petition, this chap's options diminished quite a bit. So we had a look at things and goes, right, well, let's see things as they are and not worse than they are. So we come over here and we go, right, potentially you could look at a CVA. And a CVA is where you put all your creditors into a pot and you pay them back over a period of time, an extended period, generally 60 months. But the danger that this guy had is the creditors would have needed to vote, 75% of his creditors by debt would have needed to vote in favour of the administration. And he has a feeling that he had a problem with this US supplier who would do anything to sort of see them out of business. So we decided with him and the insolvency practitioner, CVA wasn't the right option. Neither was putting more money in. So we wanted to look at, well, what are the merits of a pre-pack? Could potentially buy this business back. Now, he had a brand, he had a website. Again, the website this year is performed very poorly. We went and said, right, get a valuation done. So we instructed him to an agent, and an agent went to value this business. Now, what we also needed to look at is, listen, could this business survive in a new vehicle? Could it survive if it didn't have this supplier debt? Could it find a new supplier? Does it need this supplier to continue? And the answer was, he actually could find suppliers on better terms with better prices. This guy had sort of fell into the, you know, I'm not really checking this supplier because I've worked with them for so long. You know, familiarity can breed contempt. And the service had gone down over the last few years, but the prices were quite high compared to when he went back into the market to source new products. Obviously, adding to the fact that it was this supplier that started to cause the issues. Now, his cash flows showed that he could make this business profitable with his new supplier and without the HMRC debt. But the issue that he had was he's got all these personal guarantees that are going to need to be serviced. So one of the things that we put him in here, bear with me, we introduced him to a part of our extended team who had a look at his personal guarantees. And they went through his personal finances and they started to put a plan in place of how he would deal with the personal guarantees post administration or liquidation. And why that's really important is this guy needs to know that if he goes in through an insolvency process, voluntarily or compulsory, how is he going to deal with the PGs? Now, because one of his ideas were, you know what, I've had enough. I don't think I can carry on with this. But when we discussed it with him, the problem with that plan is if he just goes in and gets a normal job, there's going to be no way that he's going to be able to deal with those PGs in a reasonable manner. And the threat is one of the PGs may make him bankrupt. So that limited his options and he really needed to take a look at this. Well, can I bring a business out of the ashes here? Can I start again? Can I buy my assets back? Can I keep my brand name? Can I buy the website, etc., etc.? So once this valuation had been done, we'd had a look at his cash flows and realised, you know what, this business, and by the way, sales had started. They started very, very late this year, but they had started. And once he realised that he had a plan to deal with his PGs, just dig into the PG situation. Gary, who deals with PGs for directors, he knows these lenders, he knows what they'll accept and what they won't accept. And the reality is all the lenders I showed you on the other side of the board, they're willing to hear proposals from directors in the event of a default. The reality is they want their money back, and they want their money back in the cheapest way possible. What they don't want to be doing is reporting to their shareholders that they've got loads of loans that have gone bad. So the reality is, if they restructure that loan into a personal, they call on the PG, to the outside world, the loan's not gone bad because it's still going, although it's going over an extended period of time. So in most cases, what they'll do, they'll allow you to pay it back over extended terms, so essentially restructure the loan. And in a lot of cases, which was the same on this one, because the first 6 to 12 months in the business is going to need the cash flow, they've allowed him to actually reduce the PGs to fairly low payments, and they're going to review it in 6 months and review it in 12 months, where they'll step the payments up, okay? Now, once it decided that actually administration was a good solution, and the reason why it was a good solution is the threat from the supplier was getting very real. They were talking about winding the company up. Now, in administration, it can be very quick. You can actually place a business into administration, and once you're in administration, nobody can take legal action against you, okay? Now, if the winding up petition had landed and been served, administration would have been an option that was taken off the table unless it was by court appointment, and that can be quite an expensive process. So, he commenced to do a marketing period with the agent, and that's where this agent goes out there and tries to sell this business. Essentially, it's open to offers off anyone, and his worry was the supplier from America would try and buy his business. So, when you do these marketing periods, it's essentially there'll be an email list that gets sent out. There is an advert that gets put out there. And obviously every director's worry is somebody's going to come in and buy my business from underneath my nose. And that's a potential, but it happens very rarely, because the reality is when you are an owner-operator, and this guy was in every part of the business, it was a family business, it's going to be very hard for somebody else with no knowledge of how this business works to actually take this business and run it operationally. It really needs him in it, okay? So, once the marketing period had happened, he made his offer to the agent, and his offer on the business was £50,000, and he wanted to pay it over 10 months. And that bought him his stock, his website, the database, all the fixtures and fittings in the office. And the agent then said, well, that's actually quite a good offer, okay? It's more than the ex situ value that I had, that I would hope to get in an auction scenario. But now we need to get an evaluator to check the whole job and ensure that the evaluator agrees with the marketing agent. And they did. They said 50,000 over 10 months is a good price for this business. Now, the business is then put into administration. So a document is filed at court, it is in administration that day. Nobody then can actually take action against this company. And the first job of the administrator is to sell the business to the director's new company. And there were some practicalities that the director had to go through. He had to set up a new company, he had to get a new bank account, he had to register with HMRC, he had to get new business insurance, etc. He had to get the lease of where his business was situated to be moved over to his new company. So, what this director was able to do was to start again, buy his business back, and the cost of it was £50,000, okay? And it was over 10 months. Now, we had to understand, could this business afford the £50,000? He's actually having to put in some money personally. And we had to factor in what's going to happen with the personal guarantees, okay? And we had to do a lot of this work before the director made a decision. It's very, very easy to rush into administration. And obviously, the minute you become insolvent, you have a duty to not make the creditor's positions any worse. But we managed to get all this dealt with in around 7 days, okay? So in that 7-day pause, okay, he didn't take on any more debt with suppliers, okay? So he can't be really accused of trading while insolvently. He was still fulfilling orders. So when an order come in, he sent the stock out. And there was some money in the bank at the end of trading that went into the administration. So in this scenario, the person that will get a dividend out of this money will actually be HMRC, because the supplier didn't hold a debenture against the company. They were just an unsecured creditor. There were some other creditors on this just for transparency, but the key ones were the revenue and the supplier. Now this guy, there's a myth that goes around that everyone that puts a business through insolvency is some type of dodgy guy or dodgy lady who games the system. Look at how much this director had actually put in personally. He's on the line here for nearly £300,000 personally, okay? He put personal money into the business. He had to put more personal money into the administration. And it was all driven by this supplier's game to try and get him out of the UK market. So the outcome is the guy is starting to trade, he's trading in a new company. I've spoke to him, trade has actually really picked up in the last couple of months. He is dealing with his personal guarantees. He's found new suppliers that produce equal or better products at a better rate on better payment terms. And he's been able to get through this. Now, when he called me on day one, he was in a real bad place. So the lesson is, please, even if you think it's all over, that you have no options, you have more options than you think. And what I want to do, I want to direct you now to my next video. And it talks about pre-pack administrations. So if you go to that video there, okay, click on it, you're going to find out more about pre-pack administrations. And if you need any advice, go down and click our assessment in the description and you can speak to one of my team today. Thank you.